I'm a former Amazon software engineer. I was laid off on April 28th, 2026. I received the notification on January 28th. Now 100 days has passed. I had enough time to digest the news, and this was the first time of almost fully unstructured and thought-wandering 100 days in 10 years. I want to use this video to record some of my reflections of my experience in Amazon and out of Amazon years. First of all, I'm not here to talk shit about Amazon. Over the years, which I will go over later in the video, but the overall feeling is still I appreciated this experience. I was hired in 2020, right in the middle of the COVID. It was a time when software engineer was still a well-respected career. I can't believe now I'm like an old man talking about history, but that was true. In early 2020, I was about to graduate and applied a software engineer position in Amazon. I wasn't a software engineer major, and I'm far from the headquarters. I just gave it a try and dare not to put any hope. Luckily, I had passed the online assessment. That was how the application journey started. It was a journey like a long march. I joined a WeChat group with hundreds of Amazon applicants who were waiting for hiring decisions. We exchanged information and encouraged each other. Back then, Amazon already had the infamous PEEP program to kick people out and a bad employee experience review. But we still wished and prayed to get the offer. Because as an international student, being hired by Amazon not only means a fat paycheck, but also means all the immigration concerns are gone. For most immigrations, I believe that's the biggest deal. I was lucky to get in. I remember how excited I was when I saw the offer. I never majored in computer science. I studied business analytics. It was a popular major back then for international students to buy a STEM visa. So it was even more of a luxury for me to be hired by Amazon. But everything comes with a price. I will illustrate more soon. I worked there 6 years in total. I can separate them into 3 phases. The first one is between 2020 to mid-2023. It was a honeymoon for me. And I believe it was a good time for the company too. Different from the fear of recession, the pandemic actually provided the chances for online grocery shopping and online health industry. Probably also due to Biden's subsidies, 2021 and 2022 were almost prosperous for tech industry, especially in the health and fitness domain, and I work for that domain. As a new graduate, I was really a gonghe. I had an ambition to not only improve myself as a software engineer, but also sincerely provide the best service to my customer. I worked extra miles in my daily work and even look around in the competitive product market and put up new product ideas. They call it PRFAQ. Working overtime was just taken for granted. Not just me, people around me were passionate about the product too. The VP of our organization spoke proudly in the all-hands meeting. But the bill always come due. The bright sun was covered by a cloud called interest rate in 2023. The expected recession finally came. I don't know if it's just me or other people share similar feelings. In the past years, my life was tightly bounded with macroeconomics and even international relations. I never expected that before I graduated. Anyway, as the interest rate increased, the leadership, this is a word I acquired from my Amazon experience, and my manager's tone, or I should say, the tone passed down through my manager, changed. We started to talk about performance. My manager said my performance was under average. Now I can confidently say my performance could only improve than the first year and second year. But nobody cared about that in the past. Back then, I was still young and passionate. I had the rosy feeling, like a young man in his first relationship. I could work this out. Our relation were meant to last forever. So I promised to my manager that I would improve. But when the second time she talked about that, she said something like, maybe you should look around. Another organization may give you the space you need to grow. I finally realized it was serious. It was serious in a sense that if I don't take action, they would take action. The people would knock on my door. And luckily, I transferred to AWS right before AWS froze hiring. Just 2 months later, since I left, a previous product was shut down. People who had better performance than me got laid off earlier than me. I was shocked and sad. That was the first time layoff was so close to me. Now, I entered the second phase of my Amazon journey. I call it surviving mode. Again, somehow it matched with the theme of the world. It was the time when deglobalization became the headline. At that time, I worked for an internal org that helps build local business entities for Amazon. Because I had tasted the keep, I worked super hard. I took it as my chance to survive. At average, 10 hours per day, 6 hours per week was a fire number. I was highly praised by the team in the beginning. They said my joining really made the project onto the right track. I finally felt I was valued as a software engineer. But gradually, I can't hold all the balls in the air. I started to receive feedback from my lead engineers that my code quality wasn't good enough. Then, at the same time, I was pushed and squeezed by the lead to promise an earlier launch date. If the quality wasn't good enough, then you push me I could make more bugs, isn't it? Don't they understand? But since I had experience, I could smile my living experience become harsh. So I work harder and harder to fit their requirement. Remember, I said, all the gifts have a hidden price. And that was the time I had to pay the bill. It seemed my work progress was the bottleneck of the project. I could never be as good as they want. I feel I was garbage as a software engineer. I questioned the meaning of my career. After all, I wasn't a talented software engineer or any engineer. I chose it just because it was the only job which hires international students. I got in because of a luck. Now, I was tortured every day by a job I didn't like and I was not talented at. Even worse, I created a burden on colleagues who looked like geniuses. Was it worth it? From there, I even questioned the value of my life. Anyway, in a year, my mental status changed from a survivor who fights for surviving to mid-level depression. It was a long and slow transition, worth its own episode. In short, I remembered that winter was super long. Winter in Seattle is always depressing, but that winter, I feel sophisticated. Anyway, in the end, I couldn't make the desired timeline. The project was shut down. Not sure where I should put this, but I can't make the desired timeline wasn't the right way to think about it. It's the way people above me want me to think in this way so that they can squeeze more from me. They were under pressure too. I will explain more later. Anyway, because the last project was shut down again, I entered the third phase of my life in Amazon. I called it a lost puppy. Well, this is a cute name. It's actually a lost labor that nobody, includes me, knows how to allocate. First, I was pulled into a sister team. Even though I never worked together with them, I heard their contacts in different meetings, so it wasn't too bad. Then, around 1 year later, I was told they planned to transfer me and another engineer to another team. I never heard of them. I didn't have an option to say no. What was worse, the decision came back and forth in a month. There was an embarrassing atmosphere in both of the teams. If I were smart enough, I should have known this was a red flag. Finally, in the beginning of 2025, the transfer was final. The team I transferred to was crazy. Some context for people who are not familiar with this industry. Amazon has on-call shift. The on-call would be responsible for the operation of the team, and an operation task was tracked by ticket. Ticket has 5 levels of severity. Step 3 is normal. Anything above could page you up when you are sleeping at night. Most of the team I have been worked with, having one Step 2 is a heavy shift. That team have 10 Step 2 in their queue. During the time I was there, if I wasn't paged in a shift, it deserved a celebration. The root cause for that abnormal heavy operation load had existed for at least 5 to 6 years. but implementation of the solution has been postponed. There were always public launch or company requirements getting higher priority. This long-lasting dynamic caused my final failure because I tried to change the dynamic. Then I became the problem to be solved. I had a need to improve again. Well, this time at least I can tell clearly where it comes from. Because for that, the final layoff wasn't a surprise for me. So what's after the layoff? As an immigrant, being laid off could be a catastrophe. I can go really pathetic on this, but that's not the main point of the video. I tried the business of being laid off for a long time, but finally it helps me resolve a battle in my mind. This battle has been in my mind all the past years in Amazon. It made an ambitious youth miserable. That is, am I really not good enough for them? Looking back, every time I received serious negative feedback, it came during a hard time, not just for me, but for people above me too. When the manager first said my performance was under average, it was 2023, when the market has turned. Interest rate went up, the comfort money was gone. And when my lead engineer said my quality wasn't good enough and pushed for an earlier deadline, they were already in a weak hand in the political battles between departments. They had to launch earlier to steal the march. Not to mention the third time, I know when it came from. It was probably never just my performance. Or, put it in another way, maybe my performance was never good enough. I never met the bar in the Amazon's vocabulary, but sometimes it doesn't matter. In the beginning, didn't I pass the 3 rounds of interviewing? Why did they hire me back then? When I received negative feedback, when I was told performance below the bar, it was the time when people above me were also under the gun. So, what actually caused this major layoff? The public explanation that Amazon gave is they need to shift the investment to AI. This could be one reason, but I think definitely AI wears a bigger hat than it deserves. I don't have a high enough position to have a whole picture or know the real decision-making process, but I found this video is insightful. It resonates with me. In the last 5 years, Amazon expanded fast. But the hurried expansion didn't have enough growth. When the market is good, money comes in, every level of manager is happy to hire more people. And I was happy to be hired. But when the cheap money is gone, everyone is squeezed to produce some returns for the money. I don't think anyone's happy. From this perspective, for everyone's dignity, AI really comes at a right time. It gives everyone, the investors, various levels of managers, engineers like me, an excuse to blame. For me personally, it put me on a victim sheet. When I look for the next job, I could say, it's not me not performing well, it's their decision. For people above me, they don't have to admit that they are short-sighted. They only need to say, there's a new technology. Who would know that? Thinking more broadly, my luck to enter the company back in 2020 and my bad luck to be kicked out in 2026, both of them are caused by a combination of economy, immigration policy, and even political battle between the biggest country in the world. I don't know whether I'm good enough yet. I need to continue to figure it out. But at least because of the major layoff, I don't have to blame myself so much. It looked like a single person's fate was highly impacted or even controlled by the external environment. So when I'm lucky, I get in, don't need to think about it too much. When I'm unlucky, I get kicked out, I don't need to think about it too much either. But still, in my own mind, there is a place I have to honestly debate with myself. Am I really not good enough? I have to honestly prove to myself that I am valuable and not a garbage. Otherwise, I could only kill myself to save the resource for the earth. But wait, when I was hired back in 2020, did I ask myself, am I good enough? I did, but definitely not to the level keeping me up at night. I was thrilled, I felt lucky, I celebrated. That was all. When I was promoted, did I ask myself, am I good enough? I didn't. I only thought about how my hard work finally got paid off. Then, when I was given negative feedback, why did I think about it so much? Why did I allow it lingering in my mind for so long and so deep that even to the level I questioned the value of my life? I'm using two different scales to judge two sides of the same thing. Whether I'm really good enough in reality is a hard problem. And maybe whether the reality exists or not is a philosophical question. But clearly, negative feedback carries way more weight than positive feedback. At most, negative feedback should only balance out of the positive. It shouldn't dig a big hole that I question whether my life had any value. Get in and get out are just phases in my life. Negative and positive are just information. I should learn from them, but don't have to be beaten down by them. That's why I want to make this video. If you have a similar experience or any thoughts to share, please leave comments below. I have some other reflections which don't belong to this one. If you like this one, please let me know. I will continue to make short videos to share them. Hang in there and keep alive. See you next time.